Yeah, good to see everyone. I'm so glad you all are here. So as Lynn said, I'm James Harlan. I'm the Canon Evangelist. I've been here since about August. And so a lot of you I've met, but a lot of you I haven't yet met, and I look forward to when we're able. And let's start with a prayer, and then we'll talk some about DCDI. So let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we thank you for the gift of our fellowship in the Diocese of Southern Virginia. We thank you for calling us to serve you, to proclaim your good news throughout the area. We thank you for this evening, the opportunity to learn about this new program called DCDI, and to discern the ways it might help us be more faithful and effective leaders for our congregations and for our diocese. So bless our time together. Bless each one of us in our respective ministries. We pray in Christ's name. Amen. So as we start tonight, I want to invite you all just to think about when your congregation that you are a member of, whenever this is, was its most lively, vital, life-giving place. When was it that was the case? And you can put something in the chat. You can put in the chat, oh, it was my childhood parish, or it's the one I'm in right now, or whatever. But then just think about, what do you think made it that lively and vital? What was it that made it that way? Because the fact is, there are things that we know about healthy congregations and lively, thriving congregations, and a lot of times we don't pay attention to the fact that we know that. We don't learn those things. We just sit in our church and want it to be different, and wishing so won't make it, right? And so DCDI, or Diocesan Church Development Institute, is an opportunity to really look at those things that make effective leaders and thriving congregations. And it's really, really exciting stuff. And Lynn, I think we should show our little introductory video first. Can we do that? We have a video which we know is not always great on Zoom, and so you'll want to go back and watch this on our YouTube page, but let's watch it. It's not long, it's just a few minutes. But why don't we watch that, Lynn, and then we'll talk some more.
Okay. Let me make sure we have sound and try to make the video optimized.
There we go.
So if you think about our initiatives, particularly the ones that have to do with congregational vitality and evangelism, DCDI will give us a common language with which to engage those conversations. It'll also give us a structure or a framework around which we can negotiate projects and interventions for congregational health and vitality. And finally, it will empower us to be comfortable with sharing our faith stories with one another and with the wider world, so that we can answer our baptismal covenant to proclaim the good news of God in Jesus Christ.
Okay, well, DCDI at its very core is a leadership development program. It's designed for clergy and lay folk, ideally to work together in a team, although individuals can do it, but it works best when it's a team. The training happens over a period of 8 weekends that are spread across the 2-year time period. The training happens in 2 cycles, but ideally it's 8 weekends total. The advantage of it is that besides being good theory, just good stuff, just applicable information, it's really grounded in practical issues, right? It's the things that churches are dealing with every day, right? The things that they're struggling to identify and to try to work around. Well, DCDI tackles those things. And the beauty of it is that it's not just theory here, right? It's not just theory on paper. It's something that you can take and apply. And what I think is really wonderful about it is it's not just that book stuff, it's spiritual stuff too. So you blend those two together, and it's spiritual stuff that's dealing with our Anglican identity and our traditions. And so if churches want to be stronger, churches want to be healthier, if they want to try to figure out how do we do this as a community of faith, how do we do the work that God's calling us to do, then DCDI is a perfect opportunity to get in there, work as a team, get some information, and then take it out and apply it and do the work that we're called to do. Well, the church has changed, right? We all know this, right? So once upon a time when we thought about a congregation and we looked at this group of folks, they were sort of, we assumed they were all on the same page doing the same stuff. And what we've realized is how I identify being engaged in a church community might be very different than someone else who worships right alongside to me, but might not engage in any other way. So realization that folks are engaged in church communities in lots of different ways, and DCDI tries to help you really work with that core group that is passionate and then give them some of the tools, and that becomes contagious, right? When we start to apply that and we start to see changes happening and see congregations become healthier, how they deal with conflict, how they deal with challenges, that's when I think the real magic of DCI starts to happen.
DCDI training will help people in a number of different ways. The first way is to help them understand themselves and understand themselves in a much deeper way, because the information that's going to be given during the training will be academic, it will be theoretical, and then there will be a chance to apply those academic, theoretical things so that you can internalize the theories. But it also will strengthen you, strengthen your confidence, enable you to seriously reflect on what you bring to this program and what you will bring to the congregation, so that you can use your skills and what you develop to develop your congregation.
One of the most important parts of DCDI is the project. Every team who participates will design a project to do in their congregation that will help apply all this great stuff that we've learned. It's so fun to watch teams go back into their congregation in their second year of the DCDI program to work on a project that becomes a catalyst for even stronger leadership, for conflict resolution, for program planning, for all kinds of things in a congregation. It's fun, especially to see congregations who've gone through DCDI some years later to point to all the different ways the church is stronger because of what they learned and implemented through the DCDI program. Good deal. So, as we're going along, if you have a question that comes up for you, don't even wait, just write it in the chat and we'll keep an eye out on the chat and talk about those things as we go along. But what do you think, Lynn? Should we go through the kind of what the weekends look like? Tell us some about the structure, Lynn.
Sure. So as we look at the overall program, it happens over a 2-year cycle, and we're gonna. I think it might just be helpful to see each. If I can get my dang mouse to cooperate.
Where is it?
Let's see. Can y'all see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
There it is. Perfect.
So we're talking about a 2-year cycle, and each cycle focuses on has a different aspect to it. So the cycle 1 will include 4 weekends, and they're all targeted around healthy, missional shaped congregational systems. So For example, weekend one, you see here, this is looking really at the organization system, right? And so certainly we're not going to read through each of these, but just to give you some idea of the kinds of things that will be addressed in each particular weekend. Weekend two, methods of discovery, some Myers-Briggs inventory. The third weekend in cycle one is relationship, all those important things that churches have to deal with, like conflict management and intergroup relationships and just organizational skills. Then I think weekend four really starts to look at, I think, at individual leaders, right? How we see ourselves as particular leaders, how we respond to feedback, and then as you heard in the video, start to look at these congregational projects. Cycle two, the second year, weekend one, really focusing in on culture and change. Weekend two, intervention tools.
What do we mean by intervention tools? What does that mean?
Well, I think as we start to look at, and James, I might not be as eloquent saying this, but when we look at situations that we're faced, right, leadership changes from depending upon the situations we're faced with, right? A church that's just gone through a huge transition is going to function a little bit differently than a church that has had perhaps a clergy person in place for a long period of time. And so, we're applying theory to try to deal with the changes that happen in an organization, and our organizations change constantly, right? I think when I was younger, I used to think an organization was static, right? And it didn't change. And in fact, we are very fluid, right? And the leadership piece is absolutely situational. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's applying those tools at whatever point the community's in.
Yeah. And I think some of these, particularly this weekend, are the things that, sort of things are going along on the course we planned, right? And so we're growing a Sunday school program, or we're developing this outreach program, and it's all working. And then something gets off course.
Absolutely.
And we've got to go in and go, wait a minute, we've got to look at what's gone wrong. How do we get it back on course? Is there a conflict to be resolved? Is there something to do? And those intervention pieces are, when things get off course, is how I see it. How do we get back on the course we intended?
Great.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Such good stuff.
James, you've been involved in the parish visits. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how that piece goes.
This is really fun. Yeah. So this third weekend in cycle two, people are participants are all designed a congregation to go visit, ideally on a Sunday. Now, if you're clergy, you may not be able to go on a Sunday morning, obviously, and that's okay. But if you come with a team to DCDI, then probably if you're the priest, your parishioners might go to that church on a Sunday morning. You might go to a weekday Eucharist or something like that. But you go and visit a parish and just experience it. What is it like walking in? Was there a service leaflet to help me with worship? Did someone say hello or not? Was it a liturgy I was familiar with? All these kinds of things about that congregation that you can learn just from going on a Sunday morning. And then we use those visits to learn about ways to sort of frame and understand a place like appreciative inquiry and some of those kinds of things. So we come back together on the weekend, all having visited a variety of congregations. We actually go, ideally, we go around to those congregations and let the people that visited kind of share a little bit about what they learned about them. It's pretty fun.
And then finally, the fourth weekend in the second year, we deal with those projects. And
there we are.
Sorry, had to get that to function. So just, again, we wanted to give you just a balcony view, if you will, of what those weekends look like. I think, the exciting opportunity with this is that it's not just one person going, right? You have a team that's having this common experience, and I think the conversations too that happen, the work that happens outside the weekends too is hugely important, right? Because hopefully as teams leave each weekend, they have food for thought, right? You go to a conference and you come back from a conference and you're all excited about the possibility and how do I apply what I've just learned? And I think those same kind of experiences will happen after each weekend.
Yeah, that's right. And so teams, ideally, it's a team of 3 or 4 from a congregation, including the priest, but it really doesn't work if it's only the priest. It's really best if it's the priest and several other leaders. And those other leaders in a congregation really can have any role. It could be vestry members or Sunday school teachers or worship leaders, but people who are leaders in a parish who are ready to make a pretty significant commitment. I mean, it is 8 weekends over 2 years. So it's not huge. It's not like going back to school, but it's not insignificant either. And who are ready to do some as Canon Willis said in the video, some work on themselves and some learning with a group to help their congregation. And so it's best to find those 2 or 3 people ready to make that commitment. 3 or 4 people to make that commitment together to come to these weekends. And the schedule for the weekends, Lynn, tell us about the schedule. When we say a DCDI weekend, what is the schedule? What are we talking about?
So folks will come in on a Friday, and they're all happening at Chenko. They're all scheduled to occur at Chenko right now, so that all 8 weekends are there. Folks will come in on a Friday. We'll start to do our work together. There'll be some fellowship in the evenings. Then Saturday morning, again, workshop times in the morning. And then most will probably depart by about 3 o'clock. We'll have groups. There'll be really 4 different groups that folks are working in while they're there with us, but there'll certainly be lots of time for interaction when they're outside of session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's meals together. It's so starts. What time does it start on Friday? After lunch, right? Or is it lunch on Friday?
Yes.
After lunch, yeah. So it's one night away, right? One night overnight.
Correct.
Yeah, good. So Angie, the 4 different groups. So in other words, during the weekend, there are times when the whole group is together learning something. So there are presentations, right? There are teaching parts of this where there are tools or theoretical frameworks that we learn together. But then there are times when we break into groups for some more interactive kind of experiential learning together. And so each weekend will be divided just into groups for some parts of that where there's just some practical application kind of experiential things that we're doing. And those groups aren't permanent. They'll shift around each weekend. We'll be with different people.
So there'll be times too where, we'll, as James said, we'll be all in one large group, and then those small groups will kind of be divvied up into different locations around Chenko.
Yeah. So Anne asked some parishes that have already done DCDI and what their projects were. So we're just starting this in Southern Virginia, so there aren't any here, but the kinds of projects that congregations have done in other dioceses. So by the way, I participated in this in Colorado some years ago, and actually be trained to be a trainer of this in Colorado as well. And so a lot of different projects and things like sometimes a congregation wants to evaluate whether or not their Sunday morning schedule is working, or is there a way to do vestry meetings that's going to be more effective and include people, or should we even restructure who comes to vestry meetings and how do we report things? Or
One of the
you go ahead, Lynn.
So I was going to say one of the examples of the projects that we were talking, because we had actually a training session today, was a community garden, and a
Right.
church looked at their physical space, their land, and realized, hey, we can start to do some things, and that went through several evolutions, and it went beyond just the faith community to the neighborhood. And that there aren't a lot of limits, I would say, on the projects, right? So creativity, we wouldn't want to squash that. That it's going to depend upon the group and what they see as a possible way to apply what they've learned, right?
Right.
It's not a project just to do a project. It's a project to put what we've talked about, what we've learned into action.
Yeah, and we work on those together. So over those weekends, we'll have conversations about what's going on in your congregation, what in the content seems to be resonating with you and your group. Like, we'll do some things that you'll kind of say, oh, that's interesting. Maybe someday that'll be relevant. And then we'll do some things on these weekends where your eyes will just go like this. You'll be like, oh my gosh, that's what we need to do. That's the kind of thing that'll start shaping the project. We'll talk together about those things. And so no one will be having to plan a project like that in isolation. We'll work on it together and find something that we can reasonably believe will be successful and helpful, that will apply some good things, some good theory and tools from this, and be really rewarding and fun. And so Ashley asks, so we'll be going with people from our parishes, but not necessarily in groups with them. And that's correct. So we're expecting somewhere, we hope around 8 to 10, maybe even a little more, depending on the size of the group's congregations participating in this. And so if you do the math, then we have 4 trainers to do 4 different groups. They just get mixed up randomly each weekend for the groups when we're in group things. And it may not even be the same for a weekend. We just divide those up. So there'll be time, Ashley, each weekend with the folks from your team as well. There'll be times to sort of talk about what you've learned and how it might apply, because you will have these aha moments, and you want to be like, oh my gosh, do you remember last week when we were doing such and such? This would have been the perfect thing to apply here. And so you want to have that time with your team, as well as in the groups with people from other congregations.
So James Allen's writing in the
Yes.
chat, I'm wondering if it's reasonable for just one to come from a very small congregation.
Yeah, and so we wouldn't say no, Ellen, but I think we would encourage people to find at least one other person, because there's a lot of really rich learning that happens when we can talk about our context with someone else and have that, as the bishop said in the video, we have this common language that we can use. It's really helpful to do that. But and we can talk more about that individually. So if that's a concern, Ellen, or for anyone else, call Lynn or me, and we can talk about that too.
And James, Keith wants
Yeah.
to know cost per person. So
Yeah.
let me just highlight the cost. It's not really cost per person, it's more cost per team. And so the cost has been defined by the size of the team. Okay. So for a team of 4, the fee would be $225 per cycle. For a team of 3, it's $200. For a team of 2, $175. And if an individual is coming by themselves, it would be $125. And having said those costs, don't let the cost stop you, right? There are lay continuing ed funds. We would want to work with you to make the events possible. Included in that is the manual, the DCDI manual, the use of a primary textbook, and covers the cost of the training sessions. The additional cost would be the room and board expenses for Chenko. So it would be housing and 4 meals for the overnight event at Chenko.
And to clarify, that cost per team, is that per cycle?
Yes, per cycle.
So that's per year.
Correct.
So that cost that $125 for one person or $175 for 2. That's for the 4 weekends in that year, right?
Correct.
And then plus the room and board is additional, right?
Correct.
And do we know what that cost is per person?
I don't have that right with me, James, but
Yeah.
if someone is interested, I can provide that.
Yeah.
Just give me a call. I'm going to put my email address in the chat, and anyone is welcome to just give us.
And then
a
Mark
call.
Vance asks how you manage if you can't be at one of the weekends. So what we're asking, Mark, and everyone, is that people commit to all 8 weekends to be there. What we don't want, and I know you're not asking this, Mark, so just to be clear, I understand this is not your question necessarily, but what we don't want is people committing to this and saying, oh, but you know what, I have a chance to play bridge with my old friend that Saturday, I'm going to skip this weekend. please don't do that, right? This needs to be a serious commitment. And we recognize that things come up sometimes that people can't get to a weekend. And so we can make arrangements for a makeup weekend, but I know obviously it's not the same, because as you've heard us describe, the weekends are dynamic, they're interactive. A lot of the richness and the goodness of it is the interactions we have with each other, and hearing about all the different contexts in which we do ministry. That's part of what really makes the learning wonderful and so deeply transforming. And so when we do a makeup weekend, it's not quite the same thing. So we can make up some of the content in the manual, but you can't quite make up the same dynamics. So yes, we can do makeup weekends, Mark, but we don't want people, and I know you're not asked this, but we don't want people to say that's an equal option. It's not an equal option. It's an if we absolutely have to, we will, because it's worth doing this. But let's try to make all the weekends. Yeah. Did I answer that okay, Lynn? Did that?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Right. The hope is that that you make it a priority. Should a situation occur that can't be avoided, then we'll find a way to
yeah.
I mean, not find a way. We have planned for makeup sessions. So.
And I would say the same with the cost. It's we've tried to keep the cost as low as we possibly can, but we also would say it's actually important that people pay something for this, to have some investment in this, because we know that learning is more effective when people have invested something in the process of that learning. And so, and I guarantee, I mean, I'm confident, Lynn is confident, the bishop's confident that the dollars you invest in this, you'll see a return on it. You'll come out of this much more capable of and confident in leading a congregation.
And James, if I could, I mentioned before lay continuing ed, and Roy put in the chat just a reminder that there are also clergy continuing ed funds too. So again, we do not want costs to be something that stops your team from coming to participate in this. So right. We'll certainly work with you. And James, John Rector, great question, John. Does it make a difference if your church is an urban environment or I can't say that word, I can never say it.
Rural.
Can't say
Some of those things don't come out, Lynn. I get it.
It just doesn't happen. But absolutely no, it does not make a difference. I think that one of the really beautiful things about the content is that it's applicable across, across various churches. Size doesn't matter. I think the willingness, though, is to invest the time, because it is a time investment. Let's be honest, it is a time investment. But I think no matter what your church size, large, small, wherever you're located, there is information that will be absolutely something that you can apply and then see some just amazing potential.
Yeah, and Lynn, I would even go a step further and say actually that some of the best learning is hearing people from different kinds of contexts and environments and what they're learning and struggling with or something like that. It's one of the best parts about this is that we connect and we build these great relationships with, not just knowing people from other congregations, but having made this journey with them from very different contexts and parts of the diocese. It's one of the best parts of the learning, because again, there's the content. I mean, you could read the book and sort of see a diagram of, the Benedictine promise framework for a congregation and go, oh, that's nice. But when you hear about how people frame that in different contexts, that framework comes to life, and it's really good stuff. So Lynn, do you have the dates handy?
James and Lynn, if I could,
hey Bishop,
if I could just add on to that, what I have experienced in dioceses where I have either been a DCDI trainer myself or consulted with other dioceses who are trying to implement the program, what ends up happening is when you have congregations on this journey together that are from different contexts, either large urban congregations or small rural, I sort of struggle like Lynn with that word as well. You find yourself beginning to pull for those congregations and to be on their side. And so the large urban church is suddenly rooting for that small parish of 15 people out in the western part of the diocese or on the eastern shore, and being inspired by their struggle and their commitment. And so it connects the diocese in a way that is actually just quite fantastic. So it actually enriches the journey if we have congregations of different sizes and different contexts. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Bishop. That's right. So people want to know the dates, Lynn, and we've got the dates at least. Do we have the dates for both cycles?
No, I can only give you the starting dates for cycle one. So the first event is, the first weekend is April 22nd and April 23rd. And the second weekend is July 10th and 11th. The third is September 23rd and 24th. And then the fourth is December 9th and 10th. And then the second year cycle dates will be up, will be out shortly.
And Lynn,
but I
it's
don't have
important
them
to note,
firm yet.
yeah, it's important also to note that a team can start with either cycle one or cycle two. So we'll have people start this year, hopefully fill it up, and then we'll have others start next year, their 2-year cycle, as this first group is finishing, is doing their second year. And so everyone, whatever year it is, everyone's sort of learning the same content that year, but they can be done in different orders, and that works fine. Yeah, and Jennifer asked, can we post the dates? Are they posted yet, Lynn, or are they going to? I can't.
They're going to be posted. So what you'll see in very short order is on the diocesan webpage, you will we'll have frequently asked questions. We'll have the video up. We'll have the price structure up too, so you can see it, and we'll put those dates out.
Well, I'm seeing Janae saying that she can put them in the chat now. Is that okay if she does that?
Yes,
Absolutely.
please. Yeah. Thank you, Janae.
We'll put Janae to work.
That's right. Janae, who is to be one of the trainers. She's one of our interns that's going to be part of leading this. So our leadership team, Lynn, why don't you talk about our leadership team? Who's doing this, or Bishop, one of the two of you, right?
Right. And Bishop, if you want to, you can. If not, I can cover who we are. So we're in this training phase, right? Where right now we have a group of trainers. So Willis Foster, who's on this group, Janae Godsey, who's on this group, Connor Alexander, Pam Pringle. Who am I missing? Me, James. And I feel like I'm missing somebody. James, who am I missing? Janae, who am I missing?
I think you've covered it. And then we have people we have folks this first go round who have already done this, a whole bunch, who are doing the training as we learn to be the trainers, right? So we've got a whole bunch of people working on this first round, and it's kind of fun.
Well, and James, I think that's part of the really exciting part is that this first round, we have this group of interns, but I think the real beauty is that as we start to move forward and we go through the various evolutions of this, there'll be some of you who are identified as, oh, this person would be a great trainer. And then the cycle will continue, and we will be self-sustaining. Right now, we are working with consultants who are helping to get us trained for the first 2 years, but then it will just take off in a cycle of identifying additional trainers to add to the group. So I love that too, that somebody can come, and especially if someone's really passionate about the information that they're hearing, and then in turn wants to be a trainer, there's an opportunity to do that. So I think that's exciting.
Yeah. And Joyce, the dates there are in the chat, but just to give them again, April 22nd and 23rd, June 10th and 11th, September 23rd and 24th, and December 9th and 10th. And Lynn, Marty asked, what's the maximum number of participants for this first group?
Right, so 45 is about the sweet spot. We are limited by the number of beds at the facility that we're holding the event, but 45 is around what we're looking at.
Okay.
These are all good questions.
Great questions. What other questions?
Bishop, you've had lots of experience with this. Is there anything else you want to add about why you're so passionate about this program?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I have seen this program turn a diocese around. It takes a little while to seep into the culture, but I've seen a diocese get connected in ways that I had not thought possible. And I've seen churches become alive and excited as they start to gel around their projects. I had one church whose project was to start a unity garden out in some of their property. They had some extra property, and so their project was to start a unity garden. And they did all the planning and started the garden. And what ended up happening is folks in the neighborhood began to come and help in the garden, and then began to come and be the recipients of the fruits of the garden, and then started bringing their children to the Sunday school class because they had connected with the people that were working in the garden. And then suddenly this church was baptizing numbers of kids who had not been in church before. And it all stemmed from their DCDI project of a unity garden.
Isn't that great?
So yeah, it's just, there are countless stories like that. So the other thing that I mentioned just a little while ago is the way that a diocese becomes connected and really starts to care about each other. So there's no competition between parishes. Every parish, every faith community is important and has a gift that can be offered, and everyone is really excited about that, and not so turned inward to their own selves. The other plug that I will put in, and this is, it may seem trivial and silly, but these are overnight events, and I want to put in a plug for the social hour. People bring refreshments, so you bring your own refreshments. So it's an opportunity to try out your favorite brownies on this group. And then people bring things like board games and musical instruments, and they really have a good, strong time of fellowship on Friday evenings that adds to that connectedness that I talk about. So it's a real community building thing as well.
Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you, Bishop. That's terrific. So Angie asked about the time commitment in it, and so it varies a bit weekend to weekend, Angie. But there's always some reading to do. So there's some books that have sections of them assigned. It's not massive amount. It's always helpful to read the parts of the manual ahead of time that we're going to cover that weekend. It just again, learning those things. If you read it first and then hear it and talk about it, it's just going to sink in a little more. Cycle 2, weekend 3, we have those congregational visits, so that takes a Sunday morning to go visit somewhere, and then there's working on a project. So it's not. I didn't find it an onerous amount of work when I did it. Did you, Bishop? It wasn't a massive amount, was it, for you?
No, it's not a massive amount of work. The only place that I struggled is some of the organizational development reading is a little deep, but I just don't particularly have a brain for that. There were others who did and really, really assimilated all of that. So each person has their own gifts. But it doesn't take a lot of time to do the reading.
And Bishop, I found that there were times, initially I was reading this stuff thinking I had to master it from the reading, and then realized about after the second weekend, I realized, no, I don't have to master this. I have to start, my brain has to start processing. I'll get it when we're on the weekend, when we're talking about it, applying it, practicing it, bouncing it back and forth, putting it in different contexts. That's when the learning happens. So when I realized that the reading wasn't right to master it for an exam, it helped me enormously.
I mean, James, you're describing little aha moments, right? When all of a sudden a concept connects with an image that you have or an experience you've had, and those aha moments, I think,
exactly.
Again, you're not learning this sitting at your desk, right? You're in community, you're in discussion, you're engaging with other people, and even for the interns who have been trained, as we're being trained, that same thing's happening, right? Conversations are happening between all of us as we have little aha moments. And so that's the fun of that. It's not just book, right? You're not sitting there with a textbook. You have a concept, but then there's a chance to break it down and talk with others. and go a little bit deeper.
I have never actually encountered a congregation who was sorry that they went through DCDI. They all feel like they have benefited in some way.
Yeah. What else? What else, Lynn?
Let's see, we covered cost. And again, you'll see, we'll have all this information up on the website. Certainly, if you're interested right now, or in the next few days, you start to think about, hey, I want to get on that list. I want to be part of that first group of 40, 45 people. Just either send myself or James. And James, you want to put your email address in the chat as well? Sorry,
Yes.
I put mine in, but I forgot to put yours in.
Happy to
Just
do
send
that.
us an email and indicate, you know, I think our church would like to send a team. And then we'll be able to follow up with you with, you know, details and all the registration stuff. But again,
Yeah.
please, you know, the piece on the money, if you think, oh, I want to try this, but I'm not sure I have the funds, do not let that stop you. We can help you make it happen.
Yep.
What other questions do you have? And James,
Yeah.
we have a number of the trainers on the group. Is there anything they want to
Yeah,
jump in
anyone?
with?
Yeah, who else here? Janae's, I saw
Janae
Janae.
and Willis.
Is Pam here?
I have to see. I don't
I
know.
saw Pam. I don't think her camera's on, but
Okay.
It's not a have to, but if you
Okay.
all have anything, the trainers that you want to add, feel free.
Well, I'm just excited to be part of this. And my church, St. Michael's in Bon Air, will definitely be sending a group because I see it as something that will be helpful for us, you know, as we're looking to our future and how we can really grow in our spiritual depth as well as reach out to our community. So I think it's going to be a great thing.
Thanks, Janae.
Thank you, Janae. David asked, how soon is the manual available? I think we distribute that the first weekend, right?
Yes.
yes.
Roy wants to know if there will be cinnamon rolls. I imagine we
I know.
could
I'm
make
sure
that
there will
happen
be.
at Chenko.
Yeah.
Roy and his cinnamon rolls at Chenko.
Yeah. And it's exciting because we've already gotten some congregations expressing interest in this, which is fun. And so, yeah.
You know, at the speaking of cinnamon rolls, at the evangelism workshop last night with the youth,
Mhm.
Megan Dern, our youth missioner, talked about the thing that she specializes in is cinnamon roll baking and chili, and that you actually dip the cinnamon roll in the chili. She
In the
said
chili?
it's amazing. I mean, I don't want to get us off course here, but I'm just completely enthralled with that idea.
That's fascinating. I wouldn't expect the two to go together. I like both of them, but I see them together. Yeah, I'm with Ray.
Yeah, you lost me there, Bishop. Absolutely lost me.
Talk to Megan. Yep, dipping your cinnamon roll in chili. Apparently, it's quite the delicacy.
Bishop, this may not be the subject tonight, but it definitely needs to come up at staff meeting on Tuesday. I'm very concerned about this. Good.
What other questions do y'all have? We sure do appreciate you having time with us tonight. We appreciate you coming to learn about the program. We're certainly excited about launching it, and just really do appreciate you investing some time to learn more about it.
Lynn, David and or Lisa Adams asked a great question. Did we cover where this program originated? I don't know if Bishop, you want to talk about it or you want me to? You may know, you may have a better.
I can say a little bit about it. I don't know that I have the entire history. So when the program originally was developed, it was simply called Congregational Development Institute or Church Development Institute. And it was developed by the Reverend Robert Gallagher, and I forget where he was a priest at the time. But
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Okay. So he developed the program, and then originally it was intended to be a consulting type program that you train people to go into congregations as consultants to fix their problems. But over the years, the program evolved and developed and became Diocesan Congregational Development Institute, with the idea being that instead of training consultants, we're training entire teams that are within a congregation because they know their system better than anybody else and can be just the intervention, for lack of a better word, that that congregation needs. And so over the years, the program developed. Bob Gallagher is not involved anymore, although he still consults. I mean, I had an email from him just the other day. He has founded an organization called Order of the Ascension. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And congregational development is what they do. So that's what I can offer. Ken and James, if you want to add something.
No, I think that's it. And that's to say, of course, Bishop, right, that it doesn't mean that someone who feels like sort of parish consulting work might be a call to them wouldn't benefit from this.
Right.
So if someone comes with a team to this, they might very well end up going and helping to work with other congregations, and that's a perfectly good outcome for this.
Yes.
Even if we've shifted the focus to congregational teams. And Stuart Tab asked what's the team size, 3, 4, or 5? And Stuart, I think we would say 3 or 4 is ideal. 5 is more than we really can accommodate on a team. So what would be great though, and we said this, is that 3 or 4, and then in 2 years after that, send another 3 or 4 from your congregation. Because you can send multiple teams over time.
Any other questions that you have?
There's one, I can't quite read the whole thing. Wait just a minute.
I'm also trying to write as people are putting in the chat that they're interested. I am trying to add them to my list.
Yeah, put them on your list, Lynn. Good, thank you.
Okay, someone was writing to request to be included.
Good.
So just appreciate all of you who are putting the information of interest in the chat, just so we make sure that we don't miss you. If you could just send us an email, that way we capture your email, your correct email address, and can be back in communication with you. So
I'm sorry about putting the cinnamon roll chili thing in your mind.
How funny. And so if you're here, if you're here tonight, and maybe not with a bunch of people from your congregation, or you're not sure you are, it's a good thing to do then to go back to some of your other leaders in your parish and talk to them about this. The video is going to be on the website. Lynn and I are always available to talk. And Kirk, for example, asked, what are the goals of the program? Did you cover this? Well, we did, but we're happy to talk more about it at some point too, if that's helpful for you. If you or a group from your congregation is trying to discern whether or not this might be helpful, we can do some of this, talk about some of this with you. The video will answer some of the questions, but then we can certainly talk further.
And we are going to be showing that video again on Saturday morning.
Yep. Good. Good. What else, Lynn? Is that it?
Unless we can hang around if there are additional questions. I'm fast and furious trying to scribble from the chat.
I'm going to say goodbye at this point so that I can log off and then jump onto the other meeting that's going to happen at 7 o'clock. But I want to express my appreciation and gratitude to all of you that came to hear this tonight. I'm super, super excited about DCDI, and I plan to be at every weekend myself. As far as I know, I don't have any conflicts, and so I look forward to hanging out with you all there. Good. So thank you.
Thanks, Bishop.
Thank you, Bishop.
And thanks everyone for coming and listening tonight. And I can assure you that the Bishop and Ken Willis and Lynn and I and the other trainers are praying for you as you discern your part in DCDI. And I encourage you to pray about how you're called to participate in this and support your congregation in leadership. And we're, as the ads say, operators are standing by to take your questions. So we'll be here hanging out for a little bit, but also available. Shoot us an email or give us a call, and we're happy to talk more.
And we would be remiss if we didn't say, and